Now that we've got some clarity here, we want to talk more about this. Let's bring in Joe Borelli, a co-chair of Donald Trump's New York campaign, and Guy Benson, a Fox News contributor and political editor of townhall.com. Joe, where does Donald Trump's campaign stand right now as far as all of the backlash that it is facing in the wake of that answer that he gave last night and the clarity that he has since given today?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, he did clarify what he meant, and he meant to say that he is going to take advantage of whatever the rules provide him, which is something that both the Bush and Gore campaigns did in 2000, as did Howard Dean, as what Trace mentioned. So I don't think he's saying anything that has or should have triggered the level of outrage that we've seen from some of the mainstream media. In fact, you even had Joe Scarborough this morning calling it that it was just this ginned-up outrage that really goes beyond what normal people would expect from a passing comment like this.
So, Guy, let's go to the sound and listen to Donald Trump midday today. This was just a couple hours ago. He took to the podium. It was the first time anybody had heard from him since the debate last night. And when he answered that question, he said it a little differently today. Listen.
Of course, I would accept a clear election result, but I would also reserve my right to contest or file a legal challenge in the case of a questionable result, right? And always I will follow and abide by all of the rules and traditions of all of the many candidates who have come before me, always.
Guy, how does that clarification sit with you?
Well, it's better than what he said last night. And I do think, by the way, that it's perfectly fair and, frankly, enjoyable to call out the left for their sanctimonious hypocrisy when it comes to questioning the legitimacy of election results. We just heard that report from Trace Gallagher. Democrats, not just at the time, but for years, have insisted that that was a stolen election. It was illegitimate. Hillary Clinton has indulged in this personally herself on multiple occasions, when the fact of the matter is that Bush won Florida in 2000. There's no question about it. Subsequent recounts by the media showed that Bush actually would have expanded his margin if the recount had moved forward in accordance with the previous court decision. So the fact that we have leftists fainting on couches because Donald Trump said something not terribly dissimilar to what Mrs. Clinton has said in the past about Al Gore, I think it's a bit much to stomach. That being said, though, Sandra, what Trump has been saying now for weeks before an election is akin to really calling into question the entire system, saying it's fraudulent, saying it's rigged. That is very unhealthy. It is baseless. It's wild speculation. And I think that he does himself and the country a disservice by doing so. And it seems like it's an excuse in advance for a loss that he's expecting in November.
So it just makes you wonder, and I asked our panel at the top of the hour, but is this where you and your campaign, where the GOP wants to focus their message with just 19 days left in this election, to be talking about the system's rigged?
Well, no, and that's why Donald Trump made a pretty definitive statement today, clarifying what he said. And to parlay on what Guy just said, it wasn't just Hillary Clinton. It's been Joe Biden, the vice president, trying to undermine the Florida 2000 vote. The left, fawns itself over Fahrenheit 9/11 as being this great film, and the premise of that was that Bush stole the election. So this is not something new or can be just attributed to Donald Trump. But you're right. The headline today should be about how Hillary Clinton refused to answer basic questions on whether or not she participated in pay-to-play through her foundation. That I can't understand how, as a presidential candidate on the verge of potentially being our next president, can get away with not having an answer.
So that was a big moment when he was calling on Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation to give back all of those foreign donations last night. Let's listen.
So I'd like to ask you right now, why don't you give back the money that you've taken from certain countries that treat certain groups of people so horribly? Why don't you give back the money?
Then I'd be happy to compare what we do with the Trump Foundation, which took money from other people and bought a 6-foot portrait of Donald. I mean, who does that? It just was astonishing.
What did you make of that exchange, Guy?
Well, I think her rejoinder on the Trump Foundation had some bite and some legitimacy to it, because there are some real questions about that. But the thing that frustrated me watching Trump ask her that question, it was a great question. It was a good move by him. He was saying, all right, if you want to talk about how hateful and mean I am, why don't you and the Clinton Foundation give back the millions of dollars that you have accepted from misogynistic and homophobic regimes in places like the Middle East? She was visibly squirming and uncomfortable as he asked her and challenged her. But then he kept going. He couldn't shut his mouth and let the moment sit there and force her to ask or answer the question.
Joe, it just appears he just can't help himself.
He kept going and started talking about Haiti. He stepped on his own moment.
All right, we're going to leave it there. That's a good place to stop. Thanks to both of you, Joe and Guy, for being here. Everybody had a late night last night, so